The Battery is starting to get packed a little bit more. You can see behind us there is just a plethora of people, but we've got a really important guest with us today, Grant McCulley, our Braves insider. Grant knows all things about the Atlanta Braves and has been an Atlanta Braves fan ever since you were a little kid, so this is going to be a really special day for you.
Yeah, I don't think I'm alone in Braves country as far as how long can you wait for a World Series. The answer we found out was 26 years, and when we were going to the 90s, you thought, hey, every year or two you're going to get back here. But this, I think, for Braves fans, a long time coming, an improbable run as well. I know, Jeff, you covered a lot of those great teams throughout the 1990s. This kind of felt like a microcosm of the kinds of teams that we saw back then, especially in the improbable category, which, of course, was how we kickstarted in 91.
Two things surprised me about this, and we talked about this a little bit during the last segment, was for all of the great pitching, starting pitching the Braves had, they get one World Series championship out of that. That is still head-shaking. Yeah. And the other thing that's head-shaking is during those Octobers in the 1990s, the Braves didn't hit the ball. Man, they were stone cold offensively. They didn't hit for power. This team hit for power in the postseason. That made the difference. When you hit home runs the way this Braves team did in the last few weeks, the last month, good things are going to happen. And they, you combine that with cobbling together a pitching staff. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It is astonishing to think that they were able to pull it off when those other Braves teams were not.
Yeah, it was kind of the polar opposite. I mean, if you go back and look at 1995, the World Series MVP was a starting pitcher. You look at 2021, the World Series MVP is a slugging outfielder who hit 3 go-ahead home runs in a 6-game series. And it was, I think, offensively speaking, we've seen the Braves really turn that corner the past few years, but it has kind of gotten quiet in October. But they did just enough on most nights and more than enough on some nights this October to back up as they just made it work with the pitching staff built largely on the bullpen.
Got to hit the long ball in modern baseball to win.
Yeah, you have to, and they did.
If you can't, forget it.
Yeah. You know, I'm curious. I think Alex Anthopoulos did a phenomenal job. I think no one's going to argue that, especially after the trade deadline. He got all those pieces in the outfield, and Jorge Soler being one of those. Is there one in particular where you were most shocked by maybe the production they had? Maybe when they came in, you were thinking, why him? And now you're a little bit more shocked?
Yeah, I think Eddie Rosario kind of has to be that guy, because you also had to wait about a month for him to finally get to make his Braves debut, because he was on the injured list in Cleveland. And it's just great to see that every one of those guys made some kind of contribution. It was Jock Peterson first in the initial aftermath of losing Ronald Acuna Jr., a guy that you're not going to make one trade and replace. And as it turned out, each one of the guys that came over, whether it was Jorge Soler, who was batting under 200 in Kansas City, whether it was Adam Duvall, who we know really well, who ended up leading the National League in RBI, or whether it was Eddie Rosario, who jumped in this mix as well. It was quantity and it was quality. But Rosario, especially once we got to the NLCS where the Dodgers were waiting, somebody had to play the hero, and he was most certainly the offensive hero.
Have we ever seen a general manager, a trading deadline kind of example that has had the unbridled success that happened here?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm hard-pressed to think of. I mean, every slot machine poll came up with 3 cherries.
It really did. I mean, it was just one of those hot streaks, if you will. He was sitting down at the table. You just wanted to be around to see what he was going to do next. And offensively, they needed the answers. Pitching staff-wise, I think, losing Charlie Morton in the World Series certainly changed things. It certainly challenged this club. But Max Fried stepped up, pitched the game of his life, and the biggest game that he was going to be asked to pitch, at least to this point. And I think you saw something out of Ian Anderson that Jeff felt a little bit like what Steve Avery was giving the Braves in October's way back when the whole run began, and the Braves went from being a team that just wanted to find a way to get into October to a team that feels like it could be there every year.
Rosario reminded me a little of Tony Tarasco.
Oh, yeah?
There's an obscure reference.
It's an obscure reference, but for Braves fans who saw each and every team be just a little bit different, I think the continuity is built around starting pitching. Here, you've got a club that had to figure out a way to do it without arguably the best player in all of baseball, who was not available to them. I don't think the Braves in the 90s ever really had to go through that kind of a setback.
No, and it seems like the Braves of the 90s were always running into a Braves team of 2021. That is hot hitting, hot
at the
pitching,
right time.
Unexpected. Where did that come from? Whether it was the Padres, the D-backs, or the Marlins.
It really was. And as you look at the Braves World Series teams, I think this one's going to have a unique story that we're going to be talking about for a long time. And I know that Braves fans, we love our history. We love the Hall of Famers and the nostalgia that comes from those teams of the 90s, with 95 being the one that got over the top. But now when you walk through Truist Park and when you think about the Braves World Series teams, highlights from this year's club is going to be playing for a long time to come. And that's a pretty cool feeling, I'm sure, for all 26 plus of the guys guys that made it happen.
Yeah,
Don't you feel there's a more emotion with this team? Because, look, in '95, the expectation was, look, the Braves are the best team in Major League Baseball. Anything short of the Commissioner's Trophy is a bust.
Yeah.
Therefore, there wasn't the same kind of energy and enthusiasm, even along the parade route in 1995, that I feel like we're seeing today. That level of expectation has stirred the hearts and minds of a lot of Braves fans.